Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after a performance that is incredibly difficult to describe. The Warriors fall to the Memphis Grizzlies 144-93 at FedExForum on Thursday night. I actually don't really know where to start, so I'm going to let you guys lead the conversation and then I'll put my 2 cents in where it's required. FTW Clan says, absolutely disgusted. Worst game of Curry and Draymond's career. Yes. I actually cannot recall a worse combined game from those two players. And at the end of the day, we can look at all the other pieces on the team, but the team will go as far as those two key veterans take them. And it was it was abysmal. You run out of describing words, out of adjectives to try and come up with a summation of that performance from those two guys. So if you just look at the raw box score numbers, Steph has 2 points, 0 of 7 from the field, 0 of 6 from three-point range. It's the first time in his career where he's played 12 minutes or more and he doesn't have a field goal. Oh, I don't even know. I think there's a wider discussion to be had here about Steph and where he's at right now, because usually I give Steph plenty of wiggle room. It's an 82-game season. Asking anyone to be so dominant throughout the entirety of the season is really difficult, particularly a guy that's nearly 37 years old. So I'm not going to be the person that goes early on, Steph Curry is now in decline and isn't the player he once was. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to hold out and have as much faith in Steph as possible, but it's pretty hard to defend him over these past 10, 11 games. He's been, since that Dallas game where he went for 37 points in Clay's return, it's been poor. It's been really bad. And this was probably the worst game of his career. So I don't know. And then Draymond might have had the worst box score I've ever seen in my life. Try and find me a worse box score line than this from Draymond Green. He plays 19 minutes. He does not score a single point, does not record a single rebound, does not record a single assist. He records 4 turnovers, has 4 fouls, is 0 of 4 from the floor, 0 of 1 from three-point range, and is a minus 42 in 19 minutes. Oh, again, it's my classic saying, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. That is, I have no words. It's actually hard. I'm just going to read out your guys' comments because it is difficult for me to comprehend how bad a performance that was from the Warriors as a team and how bad a performance that was from Steph Curry and Draymond Green. It's terrifying, legitimately terrifying. I had a mate of mine who messaged me at halftime. He said, what is going on? He had $200 on Steph Curry as part of a multi, and Steph Curry had to have 15 points and 2 or more threes, which I'm assuming was just he just included it for some reason, maybe it was a money back thing where he had to have a 4-leg multi and he just threw that in as an extra leg, because I imagine it was paying $1.10. Steph to have 15 points, 2 plus threes, he gets that 99% of the time. And he bets on it, puts $200 on it, and Steph has 2 points without a 3, without an even single field goal. I don't know. GSW says, I'm starting to feel like no trade can save the Warriors. That's the question mark when I saw a few people on social media saying that, well, if Steph's just going to play like this, then there's no point even getting a Jimmy Butler or anyone like that, because this team won't do anything if Steph Curry is going to play like that. So that is a genuine conversation that we can have. And Emmy King says, this is crazy. Yeah, pretty good way to sum it up. I had another mate of mine message just said, just 2 letters, to me. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much the reaction of most fans watching this game, I would have thought. Dan Decker says, Melton gets injured and the coaching staff don't even make any tweaks. Why aren't they playing Anderson? Slow-Mo was probably one of 3 players, I would say, that was okay in this game, or at least got a pass. Kyle Anderson, 4 of 8, 3 of 4, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, minus 6, which was almost the best of basically any player that played considerable. TJD was a minus 4. I mean, I'm not even going to look at the plus minus. It's just that absurd. But yes, Kyle Anderson, the fact that he didn't play on Sunday against Dallas is just mind-boggling to me. And I thought his performance was good enough. As much as it's hard to take out anything from this game, his performance is good enough to suggest that guy should not be out of the rotation. He should be playing at least 12 to 15 minutes a night. Anema King says, I'll be attacked if the day that Curry's forcing too much and he's part of the problem. JSW says, pod stat padding. I don't care. I literally don't care about pods stat padding. Like, to the point where, well, when I say I don't care, I'm actually glad he did. Like, the fact, like, people will look at it and say, yeah, he stat padded, all his points and numbers came in the fourth quarter. Cool. At least he did something. At least he did something. That is more than you can say for essentially any other player on this team. So you can call it whatever you want, stat padding, whatever. At least he did something. And that is a start, right? Finishes with 21 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, efficient, 9 of 13, 2 of 5. Did it come when the game didn't matter? Yeah, sure. But on a night when there were literally no other positives, I'm still taking that as something. Like, at least he showed up. At least during the fourth, he was still fighting. And that's the thing. Like, I think Pods will always have that, is that he's always going to bring some level of intensity, and you're never going to be able to take that away from him. So I want to give, again, I'm trying to pick out some positives here. Thought Kyle Anderson was okay. Pods, good fourth quarter. And again, we can't take many positives. I'm just going to take that. Like, I don't know, stop being so negative. I know you can call it stat padding, and yes, it is essentially, but on a night when there's no other positives, I'm taking that as one. And then Wiggs. Wiggs was probably the only one that got a pass mark, particularly among the starters. 19 points, 6 of 11, 4 of 5 from three-point range. Another solid performance again in a game that was otherwise extraordinarily terrible. Just trying to get through a few more comments here. Sandex says Steph should stop passing the ball and go back to being a shooter. Yeah, the fact he only takes 7 shots in 24 minutes, you've got, Kuminga taking 12, Schroder taking 12, Wiggins taking 11. There's part of this is a Steve Kerr issue, and Steve Kerr also had an horrific night, it must be said. Like, some of his rotations were deplorable as well. Why don't we just go back to Steph's normal rotation where, like, he plays? I personally would love him to go back to Steph playing the first 12, then sitting the first 6, and then playing the last 6 of the first half and doing that again in the second half. But that means he plays like 36 minutes. Maybe that's clearly too much for a guy who, again, is nearly 37 years old. Maybe it's a case of, can we just go back to him playing like the first 9 minutes and then maybe sitting the remaining three minutes of the first and third quarter, and then the first 4 minutes maybe of the second and fourth quarters, so he ends up playing like 17 minutes each half, and it's like 34, rather than this in-out business where he's essentially like, he's the backup point guard to himself. Like, they continued, yes, they started Schroder, he came in for the first time, but they still took Steph out in the first 5 minutes and brought him back, then took him back out again, then he closes the first half. Like, just doesn't work. Does not work for mine. I like the idea of it to trial it a little bit, but it's clearly not working. Decker says we should attack the paint and get free throws. 8 turnovers in the first quarter. Like, what are we doing? FTW Clan says, yeah, I'm not happy with this roster at all. There's way too many players on the team that just can't buy a 3. Why? That first half when Gary Payton II was on the floor, there were 2 different stints when Gary Payton II came onto the floor when Ja Morant was off it. And I said on yesterday's episode, okay, first of all, I want GP2 out of the rotation. He should not be on the floor whatsoever. But I did say, look, if he's going to be on the floor, it has to be guarding Ja Morant. It has to be out there hounding him if Schroder and Wiggins can't do anything against Ja. And Ja didn't even have a big game. Like, yes, was good playmaking wise, but what did he have? He goes 9 points. 9 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. That's right, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists in a game the Grizzlies put up 144. That's scary. The fact their best player didn't have to do anything, and they still put up 144. Like, at least the other night, Luke had to put up 45 for the Mavericks to get to 143. I don't know. It's literally, it's tough. And I don't know what GP2, why someone explain to me why Gary Payton II is playing over Kyle Anderson. Because you can't say, like, if you're going to argue, oh, well, you've got Kuminga coming off the bench, TJD coming off the bench, you just can't have Kyle Anderson there because that's a similar position. It doesn't matter to me because Gary Payton II is also like a big man because he can't shoot. So he's almost taking one of those roles as well. Kyle Anderson is bigger. Yes, very different size-wise, but I think the Warriors are playing too many guards anyway. Like, they just need Kyle Anderson's size out there. He can actually do some ball handling, playmaking stuff for you. He's going to be a better finisher going towards the rim. He's ironically not a good shooter, but a significantly better one right now than Gary Payton II. Someone explained to me why Gary Payton II is getting more minutes, at least in the first half of this game, than Kyle Anderson. That has to end. Has to end. I'm telling you right now, that is the biggest frustration I had from a rotation standpoint in this game. Why the hell is Gary Payton II playing, for starters, and why is he playing when Ja Morant is off the floor? And why is he playing in lineups that also include like Schroder and Pods, and you're just going significantly small? Get Kyle Anderson out there instead, because he's just a better NBA player. I don't want to turn this into a Gary hating session, because he's like one of the biggest fan favorites over the recent years. Obviously, a huge part of the championship team. Was an impactful piece even last season, albeit obviously had a lot of injuries. But when he was on the floor, he was actually impactful. Had a good game against the Timberwolves a few games ago when he could actually lock on to Anthony Edwards and defend him for a significant period, and played well. He can still bring some of that defensive impact, but his offense is just too limited. And that's the issue. Is too many guys here. Just going back to who had that comment? Yeah, FTW Clan says too many players on the team that just can't buy a three. That's the exact point. There's too many guys on this team that are offensively limited. You cannot continue to play all of them if that's the case. JSW says Wiggins looking like the only good player. The funny thing is Wiggins looking like the only good player, but if you want a significant upgrade and you want another star, Wiggins has to be included in it. So that's the tough part of that. Then Razor Sharp, let's send Kerr packing. Yeah, the rotations in the first half. He went to like 12 guys again. Just stop. Just stop. Go to 9 or 10 guys. Lock into that. I was disappointed. I have to say I was disappointed that he went back to Draymond and Looney front court at the start of the game. When that came through from Slater, tweeted that out half an hour before the game, I was just like, oh. Because what did I do? I sat here yesterday and said, I think Kuminga deserves to continue this trial run as a starting power forward playing 30-plus minutes. Okay? And yes, Kuminga ends up playing 27.5 minutes in this one, but he wouldn't have if the game was semi-competitive. He would have played more like 20. Okay? The guy's been averaging over 20 points a game over the last 6 games. You struggle enough offensively as it is, and you're going to cut the minutes of the guy who's arguably the second best offensive player on the team. He had a horrible one in this one. Horrible. But, like, what do you expect when you keep bringing this guy in and out of a starting role, and you keep bringing him in and out of the rotation, has a long stretch playing 30-plus minutes, then you're basically going to pull him back to he played 7 minutes up until late in the first half. And I don't know. It's just, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I understand the basketball decision. Maybe it's the right basketball decision to start Draymond Green again instead of Kevon Looney. Instead of Jonathan Kuminga. But for the good of this team, I wouldn't have done that straight away. Like, you just haven't seen enough of it for me. And I almost felt good about the fact, or felt vindicated to a degree, that the Warriors started so slowly, because I think a lot of people saw the start of the game against the Mavericks the other day and put too much responsibility of that onto Jonathan Kuminga and the fact he was starting over Draymond, and said, oh, look, Dallas hit their first 9-10 shots because Draymond's not out there. And I just don't think placing that responsibility on Kuminga was fair. And look what happens in this one. Draymond starts instead, and the same thing happens. Grizzlies get out to a 13-2 start, end up winning the first quarter 37-15. 69-38 by halftime, win the third quarter, 40-21. It's a 50-point game by the end of the third quarter. And you know what? It felt like that. Like, it wasn't as if, it legitimately felt like one of the worst performances I've seen from any NBA team in a long time. That was a disgrace. FTW Clan, the Olympic run is catching up to Steph, and Schroder did not look good, but I'll give him a break since it's his first game. Yeah, there's clearly some question marks to be had with the backcourt, where Schroder is essentially the point guard and Steph's the 2 guard, and therefore, is that going to work? Is playing Steph off the ball and just because it's hard. If you're a shooting guard, it's actually hard to be involved in the game enough to leave as much of an impact as you can. Like, Clay was perfect because he could go for, what did he go for, 16 on 13 dribbles one time, and he just didn't need the ball in his hands, right? Steph, you still you don't want to just put him into a shooting guard role where he's just playing off the ball and you're not getting that juice that he can bring on the ball in terms of his creativity and his playmaking. There's got to be a fine balance there because Schroder clearly needs the ball in his hands as well. I think they were trying to get him going. Poor debut, must be said, 2 of 12, had 4 turnovers, which is quite comical given it just felt like the Warriors almost brought Schroder down to their own level. Like he averages, I think, 2.5 turnovers on the season with the Nets, and then all of a sudden he comes out and has a couple in the first, in his first stint, and it's like, well, that's just, the Warriors turning Schroder into a Warrior-style player where, there's just some sloppy turnovers in there and stuff. And look, again, it's hard to be too critical based on one game, so you've got to reserve judgment a little bit. The issue is the roster's just not really catered for him. Like, there's not enough shooting out there. There's just too many non-shooters. Too many non-shooters in a Schroder-led offense, particularly when Steph's on the bench. It's going to make it really difficult. And there's no actual rolling threats. Like, a couple of times he ran pick and rolls with Draymond, and Draymond just can't finish at the rim. And particularly, again, playing the Grizzlies, when they've got, Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr., even Aldama's, a near 7-footer, it makes it really difficult at the rim. And, Draymond, Looney, they're just not those guys. TJD, I think I'd like to see him more with Schroder, particularly in second units, because I think he's a guy that, can he even finish? Not really. I've been harping on about how bad his finishing's been this season, but at least he's got some athleticism, so he can make a dunk here or there, maybe off pick and roll, lobs, stuff like that. I don't know. The team, it's going to be a bit of a struggle because, as Draymond and Steve Kerr have said even before this game, like they kind of have to cater their own offense to Schroder a little bit. So we'll wait and see. MVX Hunter, people got to remember Steph is a 6'3" guard who is 36, about to be 37 with knee issues. Steve Kerr's rotation in this terrible roster isn't helping him. He doesn't have a secondary guy like AD. Yeah, they're all valid points. He said, don't get me wrong, this is a terrible Steph game. He should be held accountable, but no one else really made it easy for Steph. Dre smoking layups, no one was hitting shots except for Wiggins. All valid points. Razor Sharp says, let's face it, we are mediocre, right? Yeah. A game like this, and you actually struggle to see how they're going to even make the play-in tournament, to be honest. That's the issue. The West is so good that you got to be pretty careful. You got to be pretty careful about, being even able to make the play-in tournament. I suppose the only saving grace is they did get off to that great start. They were 12-3. So when you look at it, they're 14-12, which when you just look at the record overall, that's not a complete disaster. It feels like it because they're now 2-9 in their last 11 games, but at least that strong start did give them some. Like if they started the season 500, then went 2-9 in 11 games, and the season would pretty much be a wash. Sorry. But at least now, 14-12, it feels like that game itself was a disaster, but the situation to me still isn't a complete disaster, if that makes sense. Douglas Mike says, I'm fine with Potts stat padding. Get that trade value up high, kid. Fair comment. GSW, why did they keep putting GP2 in as soon as Ja was out? Ain't the purpose of him to lock up the best player, not Scottie Pippen Jr.? Yeah, it's sad. That's very true. MVX 100, it's a team sport and people expecting a 36-year-old, about to be 37-year-old, to go off like he's been doing for the past 3 years, carrying this terrible offense. Yeah, I think it's tough because ultimately he's got to be the best player in a championship team. And if we start having conversations about whether Steph is the best player, can be the best player in a championship team, then is it legitimately worth making a big trade for Jimmy Butler? Now, can Jimmy Butler be the best player in a championship team? He's got the Heat to the finals a couple of times, so maybe. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be the guy, again, that goes... I could have egg on my face if I'm out here just saying that Steph Curry's washed and that he's not the player he used to be. I think we'll all have eggs on our faces if we proclaim that too much, and I simply just don't want to do that. So I'm going to give Steph... I think he's deserved a little bit of leeway here and there over the course of his career, and I think this is one of these moments. Douglas Mike says, let's be honest, they need to play Guy Santos more. Don't think that's the answer, but anyway. Dan Decker, 2 wins in 11 games is just pathetic. We must beat the Wolves on Saturday. Yeah, the challenges keep on coming. You got Minnesota in Minnesota on Saturday. They're going to go in clear underdogs there as well. Ronald says, I think we should let Stotts and Stackhouse call the plays. Yeah, it's interesting to see how much Like those guys were lauded for so much of their impact to start the season in that 12-3 run. It's really difficult to know necessarily how much of an impact those guys are actually having and how much of a say those guys are actually having. But clearly the rotation, at the end of the day, like everything falls on Steve from a strategic standpoint and from a rotation standpoint. And some of the rotations you saw in that first half were diabolical. Dan Decker says, what do you think should be our starting five? I don't know. Like based on this roster, I don't know. They need a center. Just go and trade for Vucevic, please. Get Gary Payton out. I don't know. Choose another player that you need to obviously get rid of to match the salaries. Just go and get Vucevic, okay? Unless you really think that Jimmy Butler is going to be the answer, then please do that because that's like the only way. They're in an impossible situation with their 4-5 combination because Kuminga Draymond you just can't have because running Draymond at center is just unsustainable for another 60 plus games or 50 plus games. You can't have Kuminga and Looney because I understand like Draymond's got to be out there and you want him playing with Steph. I get that. But you can't have Draymond Looney. That's just too limited offensively in today's NBA. It proved the case early last season, and it will prove the case again if this is the lineup that Steve's going to go to. So they don't have an answer. They do not have an answer for their 4-5 combination. Simple as that. Trade needs to be made to address it because I don't see an answer. And then TJD, maybe you got to go back to Draymond and TJD. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I had the answers, but my answer is that they have to trade for a center. That's my answer. Mitchell Bro says, us continuously missing layups and open three seems to make us lazy on defense. Guys aren't willing to dig their heels in anymore. Yeah, that's the bigger worry. So you can look at this game and think, oh, they finished with only 93 points. Steph and Draymond struggled so much offensively. So did Kuminga. So did Dennis Schroder. All the offensive struggle. It's actually the defense. Like, you're going to have nights that come and go offensively, but for the Warriors to be competitive, they've got to be one of the elite defenses in the league, and elite defenses don't just give up 143 and 144 points in back-to-back games. That is the biggest issue for the Warriors because really offensively, they're just trying to be maybe just above league average, maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 on offense. Defense, they want to be, and they can be, top 5. We saw that at the start of the season. How do you give up 143 and 144 points if that's the case? And I'm kind of sick of Steve saying, oh, well, give credit to Memphis. They shot 27 of 48 on threes, 56.3%. I get it. Shooting variance is a thing. But you know what? How many of those threes were just wide open? Because the Warrior defense, it's actually crazy how much the Warrior defense just collapses into the paint. Just collapses and leaves wide open and good wide open shooters. Good wide open shooters. Happened against the Mavericks. Clay goes 7 of 11 on threes as one of the best shooters in the history of the game. And in this one, 10 different guys from Memphis made threes. And these guys can shoot. Jaren Jackson Jr. can shoot. Jalen Wells has been excellent as a shooter in his rookie year. Desmond Bane is an excellent shooter. Santi Aldama, the percentages don't say so, but he's kind of scares me. He can get hot from three. Goes 5 of 10 in this game. Jake LaRavia, capable three-point shooter. Luke Kennard, one of the best three-point shooters in the league. So, I don't know. How can a team with this defensive personnel, when you've got Schroeder, you've got Wiggins, you've got Draymond, you've got GP2 actually still getting minutes, how can you be this bad defensively over these two games? It's actually, that is the worst part of this, more so than the offense. Because the offense is probably just going to struggle some games. That's just the nature of the roster. The defense, the roster is built to be an elite defense, and yet you give up 287 points in the space of 2 games. Let's have a few. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on some comments here. Wolverine Solid X says, Kerr got to go. This was embarrassing. Mitchell Bro says, I feel like Vooch getting post touches for easy hooks, layups, stretching the floor for easier looks to the rim. It's a must. Yeah, just get Schroeder, Vucevic, pick and fades, or Steph, Vucevic, pick and fades, or something. Give those guys an actual threat in pick and roll, pick and pop situations. as opposed to Draymond and Looney, who literally are on the roll, cannot do anything. And maybe Draymond's going to hit occasional threes, but defenses won't guard him out there. Like, you just need something different from the 4-5 spot. NVX Hunter says, I agree with all your points on GP2. It's actually so bad how much he hurts our team, especially when Kerr puts him out there with 2 more guards. Need him involved in a trade for Vucevic. Agree. Douglas Marks, as a Wiggins defender, it feels great to see him playing well this season. At least there's that. Yeah. Well, it's actually a bit of a problem, because if Wiggins was playing poorly, then I'm sure Mike Dunleavy Jr. in the front office and the franchise would have no worries about saying, all right, Miami, here's Andrew Wiggins' salary and a couple of picks for Jimmy Butler. Okay, let's do it. The issue is Wiggins is actually playing well. And so Wiggins is like, he's actually right now one of, if not your best player on the team. And therefore, it's actually really difficult to go out and make a significant upgrade for a guy like Butler or whatever, because you've got to question, is it actually a significant upgrade? I think it is an upgrade, but is it worth giving up Wiggins, other role players, and draft assets to make that move when Wiggins is like really important and playing really well this season? It'd be so much easier if he was playing badly, because you could just go and pull the trigger on the trade right away. You can't do that. You actually got to think about it, because Wiggins is playing really well. Then Dex says, would you take Jimmy Butler over Vucevic? Depends what it is. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think everyone would take Jimmy Butler over Vucevic. Like, if you just line the two players up, of course you'd take Jimmy Butler, much better player. But in terms of the salary, in terms of what you're paying the guy, in terms of what the trade looks like that's the thing. You got to line up and say, would you rather Wiggins and Vucevic or Butler? It's a genuine question, particularly when you got to take into account you got to pay Butler. He's probably going to want over $100 million on a 2-year extension as a free agent in the offseason, assuming he opts out. So there's that. I don't know. It's tough. Mitchell Bro says, Jimmy would gut our depth way too much to the point where it wouldn't be sustainable. Possible. It's got to be at least 4 players going out. As I said on yesterday's podcast episode, very difficult to execute a Jimmy Butler trade. And if the Warriors think it's too difficult, then just go out and make a Vucevic trade straight away. Like, he was part of a Chicago team that beat the Celtics in Boston today. He had, what did Nikola Vucevic have today? It's actually quite a bit of an ugly look if you look around the association at some of the numbers guys put up, because Levine, who's been linked to the Warriors, the Warriors could have had Levine in the offseason. He goes for 36 points against Boston, 11 of 19, 6 of 11, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. That's a tough watch. Vucevic, 16 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 7 of 9 from the floor, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. So, like, that's super efficient again. I don't know. Like, you look at that, because I think there's people who question, is he a winning basketball player? Is he actually going to, like, he can put up numbers, but is he really going to help you? Well, I mean, he just played 33 minutes on a team that beat the best team in the league by 9 on their home floor. Mitch, what else have we got here? NVX Hunter says, I think we'll be fine. Sorry, I'm just trying to go. There's so many comments here. Thank you, guys, for all your comments. Keep them coming. Douglas and Mike says, Vooch would help us win more games in the regular season, but I just see him getting cooked in the playoffs. But at least we make the playoffs, I guess. That was a lot. As soon as I started reading that was going to be my point, is that, well, at least we made the playoffs and gave Steph an opportunity. And then I suppose if he's getting cooked in the playoffs, you're still going to have Looney, probably, unless he was part of the Vucevic trade. You'd still have him old reliable. You could put him out there half the time. I don't know. Like, it's not perfect. I'm not saying Nikola Vucevic is the perfect option, and particularly there's defensive worries there. But yeah. Thendecker, Jimmy can score, and at the moment our depth isn't playing well. Reasonable point. MVX Hunter, I think we'll be fine if we trade for Vucevic. I think having Schroder off the bench with a starting lineup of Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Drain, Vucevic is a true contender. Feel like the offense would allow Steph to get loose out there, and all the players would benefit from a player like Vucevic. Gives us the length we need. Yeah, I think that's the lineup I would like. And then Schroeder's your 6th man, and then that's just a good 6, I think, and then see how it works out from there. GSW says because there's a lack of a rim protector. Thandex says probably they are waiting for quit and post. We'll be waiting a while if that's the case. He's actually been good in his return from injury in the last few G League games, but yeah, I'm not sure he's going to be coming out and helping out anytime soon. Mitchell Bro says Moody will never get opportunity. GP2 Looney Slow-Mo needs to get moved for Vooch and Craig. 1, 2. Well, you don't have to get rid of all of those guys. You could keep Looney and, basically Moody, GP2, and Slow-Mo for Vooch and Craig. That's what I've been advocating for. Douglas Mikes, in response to NBX Hunter, says, I don't think that makes us a contender. This team being a contender depends on trading for a second option, or Kuminga can be that X factor, and right now it doesn't look to be the case. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any move out there that's going to really boost the Warriors into a position where you say, oh, yeah, that's going to be a championship contending team. So is it just about trying to get a team that is dangerous in the playoffs? I do think getting Jimmy Butler, if you had Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond and you actually managed to make the playoffs, teams would be a bit scared, I think. Like, even if you're the 8th seed. The West is good, obviously. A lot of teams that are very good, but there's no absolutely elite team, I don't think. Maybe aside from the Thunder. You go up in any playoff series with Steph, Draymond, and Butler, that would scare some opponents. And I think that's still the biggest, I think, factor as to why you'd want to trade for Jimmy Butler, is that you get these guys in a playoff series, maybe you can make some things happen regardless of what seed you actually are. GSW says Santi Aldama shoots 45% from 3 at home. Yeah, right. There you go. FTW Clan, it's hard to play good defense when the other team is constantly attacking in transition because we either turn the ball over or brick a shot. That is fair. You know, you make shots. Obviously, that helps you on the offensive end, but it does also help your defense. No doubt about that. Mitchell Bro says, you could see Dennis was missing having competent rolling bigs. He saw Dre and Looney and gave up. The only good thing I'd say about Schroder is he did actually get to the paint a bit. Like, yes, he missed a heap of layups, but at least he got there and attempted them, which is a lot more than you could say for most other Warrior players. FTW Clan, we have to make shorts in order to get our defense set. True. Douglas Mikes, Wiggins playing well is better than him not playing well because it reduces options. Nick says Curry, Wiggins, Kuminga, Dre, Slow-Mo should be the starting 5. I mean, maybe worth a crack based on this game. Yeah, I don't think that's overly sustainable to have Kyle Anderson as your starting 5 for the next 60 games. Ghost says we need some scoring bigs, which would help. I don't know where we went back to playing Loon and Dre. It's not going to work. They're not respected enough, and the defense isn't that good, as you saw. True. Raheen says every team has 1 or 2 games like this a year, most cases after a long road trip. What's alarming is this happened after 4 days and multiple days of practice. Yeah, good point. Good point. Like, the Warriors have barely played recently. They should have had the energy. The most annoying and frustrating thing about this is that I was actually looking forward to this game. Dennis Schroder in the mix, bit of a different look. I was actually really looking forward to watching this game. And then the Warriors just sucked all the energy out of me by the opening 4 minutes when they were down 13-2. And it's like, okay, this is how it's going to be. And that was really, a precursor for what happened for the rest of the game. Like, that's the most disappointing thing, is I was actually looking forward to this. They'd had a few days off and they just brought nothing to the table. Douglas Mike says, I would have taken Levine in the offseason, but the Bulls were serious about needing Wiggins. That's why the deal didn't go through, and it was the right decision. Yeah, that needed to happen. They needed Wiggins basically to make the salaries work, and that's still the case, which is why you're not going to trade for Levine necessarily, because going from Wiggins to him is not a big enough of an offensive upgrade to be worth the defensive downgrade that you'd get there. GSW says, why Dre have to knock out Poole? Yeah, real sliding doors moment there. Cho Boy says, this team is better than 2-9 last 11. This is a coaching issue. I agree with that. Like, they should have actually won a lot of these games that they've lost. Now, clearly not this game. They got absolutely torn apart. But quite a few games they should have won over this last recent stretch. Thandeka, Buddy not playing well is killing the team too. Hasn't been great, but not many players have. The only problem is we need people who can play the system with Steph and Dre. Maybe the system needs to change a little bit, because those guys just came out and combined for 2 points on 0 of 11 shooting and were minus. Sorry, I'm still looking at the Celtics Bulls game with the Vucevic box score. Steph was a minus 41, Draymond was a minus 42. Street Story says they simply need a big man now. Thandeka, Steve needs to change something like this. Ain't 2015 no more. Yeah, you can't. The big thing is you can't keep rolling Draymond and Looney out there. That's disastrous. The split action read and react offense is outdated. That's, I think, a good point, which I think is why they've brought Schroder in, give them something different. Clearly did not work whatsoever in this game, but again, I'll reserve judgment a little bit. We need to see it over a few games. They don't need Jimmy. They need a legit big man, says Street Stories. Small ball not working anymore. The issue is, like, it's small ball, but if you want to go small ball, you have to, like, actually have like a 5-out system where you've got 5 shooters on the floor and you can really take advantage of defenses collapsing and defenses having to actually guard everyone out in the perimeter. The Warriors don't actually have a small ball lineup where they've got 5 shooters out there who can all take advantage of defenses sagging off. Like, they don't have that. And so, yeah, it's tough. Ghost says when Moody's off the injury report, he should be playing over Lindy and be getting them GP 2 minutes. As you can see, the bad offense travels to our defense. We can't have 2 non-offensive threats on the court. I agree with that, but I don't think you look at any of these games necessarily and think, oh, yeah, Moses Moody's going to be the guy to come back in and fix all of these things. I do agree that he should be playing over Waters and Payton. But again, how much is that going to help you? I don't think it's going to be too much. If Vucevic is what it takes to unlock Kuminga, then we're just deluding ourselves. Kuminga needs to step up with or without Vucevic. I think it's worth a crack. It's what I said I've said repeatedly, like, just give him a stretch 5 and see if it looks any different. Like, he just plays all of his minutes with a guy at the 5 who legit just cannot space the floor for you or is an offensive threat whatsoever. Like, he either plays with Trace or with Loon or with Kyle Anderson or with Draymond, who, again, can shoot the ball occasionally and numbers are actually good this season. But, again, defenses aren't guarding him. That's why I advocate for the Vucevic trade, because as much as the defensive issues would probably emanate from that, the offense and having a spacing threat out there that, the big man can actually be pulled, the opposing big man can actually be pulled out of the paint, and you can say, well, they're 20 feet from the basket as Kuminga drives. Is that not going to help you a lot? I'd imagine it would. Davis says Green stat line 0. Yeah, I'm not even going to. I read it out. I read the stat line out before. It's one of the worst box scores in the history of the NBA. Read it out again. Read it out again. Draymond Green, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 1 steal, 0 blocks, 4 turnovers, 4 fouls, 0 of 4 from the floor, 0 of 1 from 3, minus 42. It's incredible. NVX Hunter, that's not true. He has no spacing, LMAO. That's in regard to Douglas Marks, I think. Gamer F2P, welcome, says, I'm so happy we lost this embarrassingly. If you are an advocate for another significant trade coming after the Schroder one, the Schroder one's not significant to me because that's not really changing too much of your team. Like, they didn't give up a rotation player for Schroder. Obviously, they gave up Melton, but he hasn't been a rotation player since he was out injured. So they didn't really change up their team too much. They just added a new piece, which is going to bring some different elements, that's for sure. But if you are an advocate for a significant trade being made where a couple of guys that are actually playing genuine minutes get shipped out, and a guy that can play 28, 30 plus minutes a game, can be a starter for you, comes back in, then this is the kind of loss that can generate the change that you may want. So there's that. And I think a lot of fans would probably suggest that if this is the kind of loss that generates significant change and shows us something different going forward, then that might be a good thing. Douglas Mikes, like I said earlier, I can see us being a better regular season team, but come playoffs, Vooch will be getting cooked. I'll take it, but that doesn't make us a contender. I do agree with you. I do agree with you that I'm not sure Warriors getting Vucevic is going to catapult them into championship contention, but it's going to be just really difficult to get Butler or anyone like that. And I think getting Vucevic is still going to have, it's almost going to be a case of, all right, see how you go this season. All right, see how you go. You might get into the playoffs. You might be able to reach the second round. Who knows? Again, the West doesn't scare me entirely. And getting Vucevic isn't going to cost you too much in the way of assets. And you're still going to have the Vucevic contract in the offseason that you could then go and flip. You still have Wiggins you could go and flip in the offseason if a genuine superstar player became available in the offseason. Like, is that superstar player going to be available before this deadline that makes it worth it? I don't think so necessarily. And therefore, if you get Vucevic, it makes you better. It's almost like the Schroder trade to a degree where it makes you better in the short term, makes you a better team over the rest of this season, and then you can reassess in the offseason. And you're still going to have the assets available. The Kuminga part of it is clearly going to be a key question because he's not really going to be an asset in the offseason. He's either going to be a sign and trade guy, or he gets an offer sheet elsewhere and you let him walk, or you re-sign him to a big deal and then you can't trade him. So, I don't know. NVX Hunter, Looney can't shoot all. There's always help at the rim and he can't do what he does best, which is drive. He can't take advantage of his best skills to get going. Trace also can't shoot. I actually talked to a mate about Looney yesterday, and Looney's had a really good bounce back season, but that doesn't mean I think he's the solution to being the Warriors starting center moving forward. The only good thing about Looney is that when he's in the paint, he's not spacing the floor whatsoever. But if his man, if the opposing big man comes across and like contests Steph or Kuminga or Wiggins or Schroder at the rim, then it's usually going to fall in Looney's lap. And that's why he's such a good offensive rebounder, is that he does make sure, hey, if my man's going over to contest, I'm making sure I'm there in position to get the offensive board for a tip-in or any kind of second chance opportunity. He leads the league in offensive rebounds per 100 possessions. That's really the only good thing, because he's clearly not a great finisher himself, doesn't really get off the floor, but he's a good offensive rebounder. I'll give him that. Otherwise, very limited. Shavant said Dre had a nice workout. I thought he was going to get tossed. He had that altercation, I suppose you call it, with Edie late in the second quarter. He had 4 fouls in the first half. He didn't want to be there. He did not want to be there, which is very disappointing after having a few days off with a new piece to the team that you're trying to integrate, and he just didn't want to be there. And I'm surprised he actually lasted the game and didn't get tossed. Actually, probably fortunate, because that felt like a game where Draymond could just do something really stupid that could have had longer-term impacts beyond this game. NVX Hunter, with the lineup that we could have, I don't think he would get cooked as much as you think, especially with Draymond helping at the 4, which is his best position, and the length out there having Wiggs. Agree with that to a degree in regard to Vucevic. Gamer FTP, the first 12 games were Stotts and Stackhouse schemes. The last 15, a classic Kerr offense and defensive scheme with last year's poor defense helping scheme. MVX Hunter and Kuminga out there, I'm sure Vucevic would be fine. JSW says Steph averaging 22.9 hertz. If he didn't have his name, I don't think he'd be an all-star with how he's playing, especially in the West. Yeah, I have seen that on social media, people questioning Steph Curry, are you going to be an all-star? I think just based, again, on name alone, he will be, but he's not going to be a starter necessarily. And yeah, he's not having a great season, must be said, and particularly the last 10 to 12 games. Gamer FTP, Dennis needs a lob threat and curb bench TJD and JK. I'm not surprised. Yeah, second unit, if Kuminga's going to come off the bench, which seems like he is now, then for the moment, who knows what's going to happen on Saturday against the Timberwolves, let alone in a week's time. If that's going to be the case, then I think the second unit needs to be Schroder and then Kuminga and TJD at the 4-5, because they're the athletes that can probably take advantage of Schroder and, working with Schroder in pick and rolls, situations like that. The other issue is like having those two guys out there. Again, you've got too many non-spacing threats. Like, it just makes things difficult. Douglas Mikes, that's just hope in regards to the Vucevic stuff. But again, go for it if it doesn't cost much. But we're not a contender regardless. But hey, watching just in the playoffs is better than not. NVX Hunter, Vucevic is so good offensively that it balances out how bad he is on defense. He elevates everyone in the starting lineup offensively and even defensively, allowing Dre to play the 4. I suppose the thing that I would say about a potential Vucevic trade is you've just given up 287 points in the last 2 games anyway. Like, your defense has been horrific in the last 2 games anyway. Like, can he actually make the defense any worse based on these 2 games? No, he can't. And as someone mentioned before, like part of the issue is you're not actually putting the ball in the basket. So you can't get your defense set. If you have Vucevic who can actually put the ball in the basket and will help spread out the offense and help other guys put the ball in the basket, then all of a sudden your defense can actually get set and you've got a chance rather than bricking so many shots, turning the ball over, that kind of thing. Matthew, I don't think he should make All-Star, neither LeBron. Let the young stars have some lights. Like those guys will. Again, just off name alone more than anything. NBX Hunter, you say it's hope, but there's nothing better to do. Like, we're not going to trade for Butler and lose all assets in this team as it is awful. So trade for a big like Vucevic makes the most sense. Matthew says also, what do you think about trading Curry for Ant-Man if possible? Minnesota are definitely not doing that. Gamer F2P says Dunleavy will trade GP2 and Looney. I'm sure of it, but Kerr is stopping this from happening. Yeah, clearly GP2 and Looney are certainly Kerr favourites and have been for a number of years. And again, I'm not all in on trading Looney. I don't think Looney should be traded, but then again, like someone else has got to be in it. If you're going to trade for Vucevic or someone making around $20 million, someone else has to be in it. Aside from just Gary Payton second, even like you throw Moody in there, it's got to be someone else on top of that. So it really comes down to either Looney or Kyle Anderson. And if I'm the franchise, you just got to pick one. And I think I might rather keep Looney. I think just because there's not, I don't know. It's a tough one. I actually wouldn't really care whichever way they go. But I think you're going to have a bit more flexibility. Like Anderson's under contract for another 2 years beyond this one. I think you might be able to bring Loon back as a free. Maybe you trade Looney because you think you might be able to bring him back in free agency. Maybe that's the way to go. Try and bring him back. Like trade him and then bring him back. Same with Melton, must be said. Douglas says, if GWS is trading significant assets to do it, and if food price is going up, but that's what's going to happen, that's when it becomes an issue. MVX Hunter says, like, your defense sucks regardless, exactly, so we might as well get our offense up and allow us to play bigger, which would in turn help our defense. How bad can a starting lineup of Wiggs, Kuminga, Draymond, and Vucevic be with Steph? Matthew said, who is untouchable? I don't think there's anyone that's untouchable on this roster, aside from Steph. No one should be untouchable. Maybe Draymond. You could actually make the argument that the Warriors would be better trading Draymond for Butler and keeping Wiggins. I'm being dead set. You can make that argument. They won't do it, but you can make the argument. Gamer F2P, we have first round picks. We can get Walker Kessler for 2 first rounders. Doesn't bring an offensive threat to me. Like, yeah, bit bigger, more of a shot blocking presence than Trace and Looney, but doesn't offer anything different. That's like, I want an offensive minded guy, someone who can do, like, if you bring in Walker Kessler, you got the same spacing issues at the 4-5, like you just do. Raheen says the Warriors franchise is valued at over $9 billion. The main reason is number 30. The front office should do everything in their power to get him a legit number 1 or 2 player ASAP before it's too late. Yeah, that's a good argument. MVX Hunter, we should trade him for like GP2, Kyle, perhaps Moody, and some picks. What real assets are we losing? GP2 sucks, man. We don't play Kyle or Moody. Makes the most sense unless this is what you want to watch. Yeah, it's a trade I've been advocating for. Peyton Anderson, Moody, and maybe a second for Vucevic. Might have to be a 3-teamer, as I kind of have outlined with the Pistons. Matthew, oh, hell yeah, Jimmy for Draymond would be amazing. I feel like you just want, again, Jimmy and Draymond on the same team just to, like, see how that would just impact opposing teams. There's been an element of intimidation there, I feel. Douglas Mike agreed if the front office had balls, they would trade Draymond for Jimmy instead of Wiggins, but no chance in hell that is happening. Gamer F2P, Kessler is better because then you don't have to help defense and the perimeter will be protected. Yeah, but you've got a point there. You've got a point. I still don't think it's necessarily worth giving up 2 first-round picks for him. GSW, honestly, Draymond involved over Wiggs is smart for Butler. Yeah, it just feels better because Draymond's also quite old. And so the fall-off, like Wiggins can just be this version of Wiggins for the next 3-4 years, ideally. As Draymond, it could go downhill quickly, potentially. I'm not saying it will, but it could. And yeah, Also just makes a bit more sense, like from a shoot, like Butler is a capable 3-point shooter, but not a great 3-point shooter. And therefore, again, if you're going Butler, Draymond, and a non-spacing big, not enough shooting on the floor. Makes it difficult. I'm going for nearly 50 minutes here. I'll finish it up in a second. MVX Hunter, but then we have an even bigger lack of size. We wouldn't have enough assets then to really get a good big man who would be extremely small. So I'm just thinking what a lineup would be. Well, I suppose you'd keep Kuminga and go Steph, Wiggins, Butler, Kuminga, and Looney or TJD, or try and find another center on cheap money. I don't know, but I don't want to get into that because it's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. GSW, but the Warriors would never touch that idea. Vucci's going to at least cost a first, possibly. Depends how much motivation. Like the Bulls beating Boston in Boston tonight, actually, like that hurts them. They should want to tank. Like they've been open for business on Levine, on Vucevic, on Lonzo Ball, and they're keeping those guys and they're winning games. Maybe they get a situation like Brooklyn where they just want to tank so bad that they're willing to take unders for those guys. Gamer F2P says, we don't need Butler. NVX Hunter says, and we would have to hope he's healthy come playoff time. We would have a starting PG who's 37 and a starting small forward who's 36. Some people just want to see it. Some people just want to see Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler combination and say, let's ride it out for the next 2 or 3 seasons with those guys. I don't hate it. Like, I can understand it. Is it going to lead to much? Probably not. Gamer FTP, it's funny how you mentioned playoffs. With Kerr coaching, we'll be 12th, 13th seed by the All-Star break. Very possible. Dash Stream, one has to be a misogynist to root for this. Yeah, it's tough. Like this game is, I know all these live streams when after the Warriors lose, it inevitably descends into trade speculation. That's just what it's going to be. Like that is what it's going to be when you have a game like this and you lose this badly. It just simply has to be a case of, okay, how do we change it? And how does this roster change? Because it's clearly not getting it done at the moment. And yeah, I mean, there's so many different individual storylines that, you know, I just didn't, like I barely even spoke about Schroeder's debut. Obviously that was poor. Again, I'll reserve judgment a little bit. But there's just so many, when you're playing so many guys, there's just so many different individual storylines, and there's a lot of things going on with this team that are not good at the moment. Not good. And some of it can be fixed internally. Like, I think Schroeder and Steph will be better together moving forward. I think the pod stuff, you're just going to have to live through, and I think he'll probably get better. The Kyle Anderson stuff, you just need to play him, I think. And if you're not, he's going to have to be part of a trade. But some of the stuff, like the biggest thing to me, I'm sorry, I continue to reiterate it. The biggest thing to me, that the 4-5 combination, the Warriors do not have an answer. They flat out do not have an answer. None of their possibilities, none of their possible options are good. Kuminga Loon, no thank you. Kuminga Draymond, no, actually might work, but it's unsustainable to ask Draymond to start center for the next 50-plus games. And then hopefully the playoffs. Draymond Looney, no thank you. Draymond TJD, no thanks. Kuminga TJ, like whatever combination you want to come up with is not a viably good answer in today's NBA. It just isn't. So, looking at a few more comments here. Douglas Marks, we started the season hoping Kuminga took a leap. That hasn't happened. That's the biggest issue. Our hope was dependent on Kuminga. The man did average, like going into this game, he was averaging 21 points in his last 6 games. Like you put him on the floor for 30 minutes, he's going to get you 20 points. And for a team that struggles offensively, that's needed. Okay. Now you can say that, okay, he doesn't contribute to winning basketball. And if that's the case, get him off the team. Make a deal that brings back someone different that you think can contribute to winning basketball. Okay, but while Kuminga's on the roster, I think he has to play because he's one of the few guys, basically him, Wiggins, and Steph and maybe Schroder now that can go out and get you 20 points. And again, I'll also come down to it. I would like to see him play next to a stretch big of some kind. Gamer FTP, trade JK. Kerr doesn't know how to use him. JSW says I don't think Kuminga fits the system. Gamer FTP, the first 10 games was TJD Draymond 4-5. Yeah, that might, like, the TJD Draymond might be your best option, but it still is limited. It's too limited to be like is Trace Jackson Davis going to be the starting center on a team that makes a deep playoff run? I don't think he is. Douglas Mikes, he doesn't contribute to winning basketball. There it is. And yes, while he's on the team, he has to play regardless. I think he can contribute to winning basketball. I think he can, but he just needs the consistency and the opportunity, and he just hasn't had it. It was a horrible game for him today. Absolutely horrible. But again, Steve doesn't make it easy on him. It doesn't make it easy on a lot of guys. Anyway, we're nearly an hour through. I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you very much to you guys for watching and for those of you that have commented as well. Thanks to those of you that are tuning in on the replay or via the podcast feed. Just a disastrous day for the Warriors. Can everyone have me in their thoughts and prayers? Because not only did I have to watch this game, but less than 24 hours ago, like literally 15 hours ago, I had to watch my BBL team. This is Big Bash Cricket, domestic Big Bash over here, the Hobart Hurricanes. We put up a performance, as in the Hurricanes put up a performance less than 24 hours ago that was pretty much, if you had to try and correlate a cricket and a basketball performance, pretty much the Hurricanes played like the Warriors did. And so to have two of your favorite sporting teams perform in a very similar manner that was embarrassing in the space of a 17, 18 hour period, it's tough, very tough. And there's not too much. The Australian cricket team's 1-1 against India at the moment. No Australian rules football, obviously. We're in the off season there. Not too many other sporting teams of mine are going too well at the moment. So it's tough. It's tough. But I'll be here throughout it all. You got to live through it. Got to live through the good times and bad times as they come and go. It's always going to be the case. But let's hope that more winning times for the Warriors are on the horizon, hopefully, because these last 11 games have been tough. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Golden State with the mates. I'll be back for another post-game live after the Timberwolves game on Saturday. Let's hope for a better result. Thanks again.